The 3 empty chairs at my mother's 75th birthday dinner told the whole story before anyone said a word. I stood there in the private room at Lorenzo's, the Italian restaurant where Mom had celebrated every milestone for the past 30 years, watching the waitstaff add extra candles to the cake. They kept glancing at those empty seats, then at me, with that practiced sympathy you see on people who witness small, private heartbreaks in public spaces. My wife Jennifer touched my arm. "Robert, maybe we should just—" "They'll be here," I said, checking my phone for the 7th time in as many minutes. Nothing. Not from Marcus, not from David, not from Thomas. My 3 sons. All successful, all busy, all absent. Mom sat at the head of the table in her best lavender dress, the one she'd bought specifically for tonight. She'd had her hair done at the salon that morning. I'd watched her apply her lipstick 3 times before we left, getting it just right. At 75, she still moved with purpose, still had that sharp wit that could make you laugh or think, depending on her mood. The dementia diagnosis 6 months ago had been like a bomb going off in slow motion. We all knew what was coming. We all knew this might be our last real celebration while she still remembered everyone's names. "Robert, dear, I'm sure the boys are just running late," Mom said, patting my hand. But I saw the tremor in her fingers, the way her eyes kept darting to the door. My phone buzzed. Finally. "Marcus, Dad, I'm so sorry. The Tokyo client just arrived early. This deal is worth $3.2 million. I can't walk out. I'll make it up to Grandma, I promise." Before I could respond, another message came through. "David, Dad, Sarah went into labor. 3 weeks early. I'm at the hospital. Give Grandma my love. Tell her I'll visit as soon as we're home." And then, 2 minutes later, the third blow. "Thomas, Dad, the partners called an emergency meeting. They're announcing the new senior partner tonight. If I'm not there, I'm out of the running. I've worked 12 years for this. Grandma will understand. Love you both." I stood there, staring at my phone, feeling something crack open in my chest. Jennifer read the messages over my shoulder and made a small sound, something between a sigh and a sob. "Robert?" Mom's voice cut through my fog. "Are the boys coming?" I looked at her, this woman who had raised me alone after Dad died, who'd worked 2 jobs to put me through university, who'd babysat my 3 sons every weekend when Jennifer and I were building our business, who'd taught them to read and bake cookies and tie their shoes, who was now slowly losing the ability to remember any of it. They got held up. "Mom, work stuff." She nodded slowly, understanding more than I wanted her to. "Of course. Important boys, doing important things." We ate dinner, just the 3 of us, and the ghosts of my sons. The cake was excellent. Mom opened my gift, a photo album I'd spent weeks compiling, filled with pictures of her with Marcus, David, and Thomas over the years. She cried looking at it, and I wasn't sure if it was joy or grief or some mixture of both. When I drove her home that night, she was quiet until we pulled into her driveway. "You know what the hardest part is, Robert," she said, not looking at me. "It's not the forgetting. It's knowing that I'm forgetting. It's like watching yourself disappear, piece by piece, and you can't stop it. And all I wanted was one more night where everyone I love is in the same room, while I can still remember why I love them." I helped her inside, made sure she took her evening medication, kissed her forehead like she'd done to me 1,000 times when I was a child. Driving home, I felt something hardening in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Something colder than that. 3 weeks passed. I didn't call my sons. They didn't call me. Marcus closed his Tokyo deal. David's daughter, Emma, was born healthy at 6 pounds, 7 ounces. Thomas made senior partner. They all texted me their news. I responded with brief congratulations. They didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. 4 weeks after the birthday dinner, I went to my regular checkup with Dr. Chen. She was running late, so I sat in the examination room, scrolling through photos on my phone. All those pictures of my boys growing up. Marcus's graduation, David's wedding, Thomas teaching my granddaughter to ride a bike. When Dr. Chen came in, she had that look doctors get when they're about to ruin your day. "Robert, I need to talk to you about your test results from last month. My blood pressure had been creeping up for years. My cholesterol was stubborn despite medication. I figured this was just more of the same, maybe a prescription adjustment. The imaging we did showed something concerning in your pancreas. We ran some additional tests." She paused. "Robert, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It's cancer. Stage 3. The words hit like a physical blow. I heard her talking about treatment options, oncologists, survival rates, but it was all white noise beneath the roaring in my ears. How long? I managed. With aggressive treatment, we could be looking at 2 to 5 years. Without it, maybe 12 to 18 months. But Robert, we caught it relatively early for pancreatic cancer. There's hope here. I sat in my truck in the hospital parking lot for an hour after that appointment. I thought about my mother, losing her memories. I thought about my 3 sons, too busy building their futures to be present in their grandmother's fading present. I thought about all the years I'd spent building my business, 50-hour weeks, missed soccer games, birthday parties I'd attended by phone. And I thought about what I was going to do next. I didn't tell anyone about the diagnosis. Not yet. Instead, I went home and set up my old video camera, the one I used to record the boys when they were little. I spent 3 days writing what I wanted to say, condensing it, refining it, until it was exactly right. Then I recorded 3 separate videos, one for each of my sons. The messages were similar but personalized. I started Marcus's like this. Marcus, by the time you watch this, you'll know I have cancer. You'll probably feel guilty about missing your grandmother's birthday. Don't. I want to talk to you about something more important than guilt. I want to talk about what I taught you. When you were 8, you asked me why I missed your school play. I told you it was because I had an important meeting. Do you remember what I said? I said, "Son, sometimes we have to make sacrifices to give our family a better life." You nodded like you understood. But you were 8. You didn't understand. You just learned that work came before everything else. I taught you that. I showed you, day after day, that being present wasn't as important as being successful. And you learned the lesson so well that when your grandmother needed you, when she was literally losing her ability to remember your face, you chose a business deal instead. But here's what I never taught you, what I'm only learning now. Success without connection is just expensive loneliness. That $3.2 million deal? Congratulations, truly. But in 20 years, will you remember the contract terms? Or will you remember that you weren't there the last time your grandmother knew your name? I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad. I'm telling you because I don't want you to be 75 years old, sitting alone in a hospital room, finally understanding that you traded the wrong things. Your grandmother has maybe a year before she doesn't recognize any of us. I have maybe 2 to 5 years, if treatment works. The question is, what are you going to do with that time? I sent the videos on a Thursday morning, timed to arrive at 8 a.m. in each of their time zones. Then I turned off my phone and went to sit with my mother. She was having a good day. She remembered my name, remembered Jennifer's name, even made a joke about her terrible cooking at the birthday dinner we'd never actually had together. The boys would have loved that cake, she said, and I didn't correct her. In her mind, they'd been there. Maybe that was better. My phone stayed off for 2 days. When I finally turned it on Saturday morning, I had 47 missed calls and 32 text messages. Marcus had caught a red-eye from Tokyo. He was at my house. David had driven 6 hours through a snowstorm with Sarah and baby Emma. He was at my house. Thomas had walked out of a client meeting mid-presentation. He was at my house. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw all 3 of their cars parked at awkward angles, like they'd arrived in a panic. Through the front window, I could see them sitting in my living room with Jennifer, who was crying. I sat in my truck for a long moment, gathering myself. Then I went inside. 3 grown men, my boys, stood up when I walked in. Marcus looked like he hadn't slept. David's eyes were red. Thomas's usual confident posture had collapsed into something smaller, more vulnerable. "Dad," Marcus started, but his voice broke. "Sit down," I said, not unkindly. "All of you." They sat. I remained standing, not to intimidate them, but because my legs were shaking and I needed to feel grounded. "I'm going to tell you 3 things," I said. "First, I'm starting treatment next week. The prognosis isn't great, but it's not hopeless. Second, your grandmother's condition is progressing faster than we thought. Dr. Morrison says she has maybe 8 to 12 months before the dementia becomes severe. And third, I need you to understand something." I looked at each of them in turn. When I was 35, I made a choice. I chose building a business over being present. I chose security over connection. And I taught you, through my actions, that this was the right way to live. So when you made the same choice, when you prioritized deals and meetings and career advancement over showing up for the people who love you, you were just being good students. Dad, we're sorry, David said. I know you are. But sorry doesn't change the pattern. Sorry is what you feel after. I'm talking about what you do before, what you prioritize when you have to choose. Marcus stood up. I quit my job yesterday. We all stared at him. What? Jennifer said. I gave notice. 2 weeks. I've been thinking about starting my own consulting firm anyway. Something with more flexibility. The Tokyo deal made me realize I was making the same choice over and over, and I didn't like who I was becoming. He looked at me. Your video made me realize I was becoming you. No offense, Dad. None taken. Thomas spoke up, his voice quiet. I turned down the senior partner position. Thomas, no, I said. Yes. I told them I needed better work-life balance, and if that disqualified me, so be it. They actually offered me a modified partnership track with reduced hours. Apparently, I'm not the first one to ask. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've been too afraid to ask for what I actually needed. David was crying openly now. Sarah and I talked about it all night. I've been working 80-hour weeks since Emma was born. I've missed her first smile, her first laugh. I'm watching my daughter grow up through Sarah's text messages. And for what? So I can make partner at a firm I don't even like? So what are you going to do? I asked. I don't know yet. But I'm going to figure it out. And in the meantime, I'm going to show up. For Emma, for Sarah, for you, for Grandma. I'm going to be there. We sat there, 4 men spanning 3 generations, all of us realizing the same thing at the same time. We'd been running a race that nobody wins. Your grandmother, I said, needs to be visited. Not occasionally, regularly, at least once a week, each of you, while she still knows your names. We'll be there, Marcus said. And I need help with treatment, driving to appointments, managing medications. I can do it alone if I have to. But you're not doing it alone, Thomas said firmly. We'll set up a rotation. Over the next 8 months, my sons kept their promise. Marcus flew back from wherever his new consulting gigs took him, never missing more than 1 week without seeing his grandmother. David cut his hours to 30 a week and brought Emma to visit every Sunday. Thomas took over managing Mom's medications and doctor's appointments, color-coding everything in a spreadsheet that would have made his law firm proud. They weren't perfect. There were still missed calls, still last-minute cancellations, still moments when work pulled at them. But they were trying, genuinely trying, to rewrite the script I'd given them. Mom's decline was gradual, then sudden. By month 7, she had good days and bad days. By month 8, she mostly had bad days. But on the good days, when the fog lifted briefly, she'd see all 3 of her grandsons sitting around her kitchen table, and her face would light up like Christmas morning. My boys, she'd say, and she meant it, even if she sometimes called them by the wrong names. I started treatment the week after my sons came home. Chemotherapy, radiation, the whole brutal parade of modern medicine's attempts to fight the inevitable. Some days were better than others. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. On those days, one of my sons would be there with soup or crackers or just quiet company. Marcus told me about his first big consulting contract, how he'd been terrified of failing without the corporate structure behind him, but he'd landed it anyway. We celebrated with sparkling apple juice because my medication didn't mix with alcohol. David brought Emma over every weekend. I'd hold her, this tiny person who would probably never remember me, and tell her stories about her father when he was small. Sarah would take pictures, and David would cry, and we'd all pretend we weren't thinking about how many more weekends we had. Thomas talked to me about the modified partnership track, how it was actually making him better at his job because he wasn't burning out. Turns out, being well-rested makes you a better lawyer, he said. Who knew? On Mom's last clear day, about 9 months after that failed birthday dinner, we were all there. Jennifer had made her famous lasagna, the one Mom always requested. Marcus had flown in from Vancouver. David had brought Emma, now learning to crawl. Thomas had taken the day off without checking his email once. Mom looked around the table, and for a moment, everything clicked. The fog lifted. She saw us all clearly. This is nice, she said. My family, all together. Happy birthday, Mom, I said. Even though it was July, and her birthday was in February. It didn't matter. She smiled. You know what I wish for? What's that? Marcus asked. That all of you remember this. Remember being together. Remember that this matters more than anything else. She looked at me. You figured it out, didn't you, Robert? Better late than never. Better late than never, I agreed. She died 2 weeks later, peacefully, in her sleep. We were all there. Even Marcus, who'd canceled a major presentation. Even David, who'd missed a crucial deadline. Even Thomas, who'd walked out of a client meeting. Because they'd learned, finally, what I should have taught them all along. Some things are worth showing up for. At Mom's funeral, Marcus gave the eulogy. He talked about her resilience, her humor, her love. And then he said something I didn't expect. My grandmother taught me many things, but the most important lesson came at the end. She taught me that time is the only currency that matters. You can't save it, you can't earn more of it, you can only spend it. And the question we all have to ask ourselves is, what are we spending it on? After the service, as we stood by her grave, Thomas put his arm around my shoulder. How are you feeling, Dad? Tired. Good tired, though. My treatment was progressing, not miraculously, but better than expected. Dr. Chen talked cautiously about remission, about extended timelines, about hope. I'd take it. I've been thinking about what Grandma said, David mentioned, holding Emma against his chest. About remembering. I started keeping a journal. Just little things. What Emma did each day. What Sarah said that made me laugh. What I'm grateful for. That's good, I said. I'm grateful for your video, he said. I'm grateful you called us out. I'm grateful you gave us a chance to fix it before it was too late. I looked at my 3 sons, all successful in their own ways, all finally understanding that success had nothing to do with titles or bank accounts or corner offices. You know what I'm grateful for, I said. That you listened, that you changed, that you showed up. Marcus checked his watch. Not in the way he used to, like he was calculating minutes lost to something more important. Just checking the time. We should get to the reception, he said. People are waiting. We walked together across the cemetery lawn, 4 generations if you counted Emma, all of us carrying our grief and our gratitude in equal measure. A month after Mom's funeral, on a Sunday afternoon, we all gathered at my house for no particular reason except that we could. Marcus was in town between contracts. David had the day off. Thomas had simply decided to show up. Jennifer made coffee. Emma crawled around the living room, pulling herself up on furniture, determined to walk. We sat together, not talking about anything important, just being present. This is what I never understood when I was younger. These moments, these ordinary Sunday afternoons with nothing special happening. These are the moments you'll remember when everything else fades away. The big deals, the important meetings, the career milestones, they all blur together eventually. But this stays. I don't know how many more Sundays I have. Dr. Chen's latest scans showed the treatment was holding, but pancreatic cancer is a patient predator. It waits. It watches. It comes back. But right now, in this moment, I have my sons. I have my daughter-in-law. I have my granddaughter. I have Jennifer, who has stood beside me through everything. I have enough. Marcus looked up from his phone. Hey, Dad, I've been meaning to ask you something. What's that? Would you want to come to Vancouver next month? I've got a client presentation, but it's on a Thursday. I could show you the city on Friday and Saturday. I know it's not exactly bucket list stuff, but I'd love that, I said. Thomas jumped in. Sarah and I are planning a trip to the Rockies in August. Family vacation. You two should come. He meant Jennifer and me. Emma needs to see mountains while she's still too young to complain about hiking. David grinned. Are we actually planning family time? Like, on purpose? Apparently, Marcus said. Who are we? We're people who learned the lesson, I said quietly. That's who we are. They got quiet then, each of them probably thinking about the cost of that lesson, about the birthday dinner that wasn't, about the video messages that changed everything, about their grandmother, who didn't live long enough to see them fully transform, but lived long enough to see them start. Life has a way of teaching you things when you're finally ready to learn them. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it shouts, sometimes it hands you a cancer diagnosis and a ticking clock and says, "What are you going to do with this?" I chose to use it to wake up my sons before they made the same mistakes I did, before they spent 60 years building impressive resumes and empty homes, before they looked up one day and realized they'd optimized their entire lives for the wrong things. I chose to show them that it's never too late to change course, that you can be successful and still show up, that the people who love you need your presence more than they need your money or your status or your perfectly crafted excuses. Emma started crying, and David scooped her up, bouncing her gently. "Someone's hungry," he said, looking at Sarah. "I've got it," Sarah said, reaching for the diaper bag. "I can do it," David said. "You relax." I watched him warm the bottle, test the temperature on his wrist, settle into the rocking chair with his daughter. He looked peaceful, present. This is what winning looks like, I thought. Not the corner office, or the big deal, or the promotion. This, a Sunday afternoon, a bottle-fed baby, a son who chose to be here instead of somewhere else. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then silenced it without reading the message. "Not important?" I asked. "Nothing's more important than this," he said, gesturing around the room. "That's the whole point, isn't it? That's exactly the point. If you're reading this, if you're recognizing yourself in my story, or in my son's stories, let me tell you what I learned too late, and they learned just in time. The people you love are not going to wait forever. Time moves in one direction. Memories fade, parents age, children grow up, opportunities to be present disappear like snow in spring, melting away before you even realize they're gone. You cannot get this time back. You cannot earn enough money to buy another childhood with your kids. You cannot negotiate for another year with a parent who's running out of years. You cannot schedule a makeup dinner for the night your loved one needed you, and you chose something else. So here's my advice, worth exactly what you paid for it. Look at your calendar right now. Look at what you've prioritized. Look at what you've said yes to and what you've said no to. And ask yourself honestly, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years, what will you wish you'd chosen? The emergency meeting or the birthday dinner? The business trip or the school play? The client deadline or the hospital room? The promotion or the Sunday afternoon with nothing planned except being together? I can't tell you what to choose, but I can tell you this. I've never met anyone on their deathbed who wished they'd worked more. I've never heard anyone say, "I wish I'd spent less time with my family and more time optimizing quarterly earnings." What I have seen, over and over, in myself and in others, is the sudden, terrible realization that we traded the only irreplaceable thing we had, our time, for things that didn't matter nearly as much as we thought they did. Don't wait for a diagnosis to reprioritize. Don't wait for a crisis to show up. Don't wait until it's almost too late to learn what matters. My sons learned. They changed. They chose differently. You can too. The question is, will you?